LIB 104, Introduction to Library Technical Services, Week Number 4, Needs Assessments. Hey guys, last week you should have watched two different videos. One was about an acquisition service through a company called YBP. YBP stands for Yankee Book Peddler, and actually they don't even exist anymore. They were bought out by another company called EBSCO. EBSCO is pretty widely known as a vendor for library databases, but recently they've expanded their umbrella of library services to deliver e-content and to be a supplier of materials through their acquisition of YBP. So they renamed it Gobi. Gobi is a book ordering platform, and it's similar to Amazon, but it's just booked and a little bit more sophisticated as it's aligned to library needs. We will be discussing Gobi a bit later in the term as well. Still, I wanted to just plant the seed of acquisition platforms that libraries work with, as they now shape a lot of activities in acquisition and technical services. The second video, an interview with an acquisitions clerk, introduced different ways a library may find and select materials for their collection. In the video, she references a hot list in reference to a publication by their library systems, highlighting titles that are really popular. Many publishers and vendors provide similar lists to their libraries. She also referenced other sources, such as book lists and library journals, which provide book reviews like choice reviews. I wanted to highlight that she shared it takes about 6 weeks for a book to arrive and to be ready on the shelf from the point of order, which sounds about right for us. What is important to remember about this is that community members sometimes expect that when we place an order for materials, it's similar to Amazon with a 2-day or same-day shipping. Unfortunately, libraries don't work that way. And then we also have to process the materials physically and electronically for the catalog. We'll be discussing what that entails later in the course. Today we're going to dive a little deeper more into user needs and how libraries determine what these may be. There are different approaches to determining what users' needs can be. Libraries can take environmental scans, or they can rely on market research. Typically, when we look at environmental scans, this would be looking at in-house usage metrics that are specific to our unique communities. Market research is looking at trends of the larger picture of what may be impacting libraries. A particular approach in determining needs is something called a SWOT analysis. SWOT, S-W-O-T, stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This type of analysis is very reflective, but can also be supported by collected data. Strengths in this type of analysis is identifying what areas or resources are particularly advantageous in the library, or they're deemed important. Maybe there's a specific collection that's highly used, or there are perhaps more hours that are in more demand than other hours. Weaknesses could be identifying areas that are lacking. What resources are in need of improvement, or perhaps growth? This can lead to opportunities. What changes are possible that could lead to new resources or services? And with these opportunities, identifying threats is also important. Threats can be construed as political, economical, social, or technology factors. There could also be legal and environmental issues to consider as well. To support analysis, data must be collected and identified. Libraries fortunately have lots of places to look for data. Libraries can begin by looking at their historical data, including library and community usage statistics. The idea is to understand patterns of change within the community and the library. Geographical data is also essential to consider. Often it is an implicit source of data, or something already understood. But being aware of the library's environmental surroundings is essential when considering what services and resources might be needed. Understanding transportation may not seem important immediately, but it is an important point to be aware of when considering library services. If the library is without parking, what options are available for people who want to visit? Are there bike racks nearby? Is there a public bus or other public transportation options? If there is parking, how much parking is available? Is it secure? Is it lighted? Does it even matter? Another area of data revolves around legal-related issues. Contracts, licensing, and their ending dates are necessary to track with resources and databases. Laws that may impact library services are essential to be aware of. Understanding one's restrictions and obligations are necessary when providing resources and services. Libraries should also be aware of the political climate in their area. The library reflects its community, and though it may be seen as a neutral space, it still needs to work within a local government or local organizational body. Demographics of the community, economic changes, social and educational organizations, cultural and recreational organizations, and community information services are all aspects and areas that libraries can either work with or draw from to better understand the needs of their community. When exploring needs, libraries can also consider some general areas to begin building questions. One consideration is why someone is not coming to the library or using a specific resource. Questions that could help understand this could relate to hours of operation, book titles or subjects, availability of resources, technologies, or even location. Another area to explore is how people use the library, its resources, and services. Questions related to this area could be how they are visiting, how often do they come to the library, how often specific resources are being borrowed, and which items are not being used. A third area of consideration is where a person gains access to the library's resources and services. Are they using the website? Are they searching the catalog from home or only at the library? Do they have to physically come to the library for all these services, or are they available remotely? If a library has multiple locations or branches, is a branch seeing more transaction than another branch? The library will also want to consider a person's attitude about the library's service or resource. Questions that could help understand this area relate to asking for feedback about specific resources and services. Community members could be asked to rank services or resources, or if there's something they feel is not helpful, explain how it might be better used or why it's not needed. Finally, gauging if there are any new services or resources is a final area to explore. So how do we gather all this data from all these different places? One way is to target critical informants or gatekeepers. This means getting in touch with the community and organizational leaders and asking them a lot of questions. It could also mean surveying your user base or targeting those who are active users of the library. A library can also set up focus groups by inviting small groups of people to participate in an interview or survey or give feedback to the library, which could be based on special interests or demographics. The library could choose to do something broader in scope and host a community forum to encourage perhaps a more open discussion about resources and services. One could also look at and follow social indicators to see if there's anything at large changing in the community. Maybe a new residential complex is being built or a school is opening. These could impact what resources the library may choose to invest in. A general field survey could be released as well. Observations are also significant. Observations are supported by diaries where you collect this information, and they're great tools for reflecting on library usage. You could observe that certain magazines constantly need to be reshelved, or you could start tracking how many people are in the library at a particular hour of a day. These data points are great to have. Databases also can provide statistics about access and what resources have been used. Some reports are standardized that most databases adhere to so that libraries can compare usage against various other resources. Another area that libraries might look into is citation analysis. Here one can look at how often a resource is cited in the academic literature to gauge if a journal or book might be very highly sought after. This is probably more useful for academic and special libraries than for public and school libraries. This leads us to your activity for the week. You will be creating your needs and own need assessment, but to do that you will also need to consider and define your library. When you define your library, you will need to identify the type of library it is, give it a name, and then give it a simple mission statement. You can look back at the libraries from last week to see how they set up their mission statements. Further details for this task are outlined in Canvas, but don't worry about creating the most robust or perfect needs assessment. You won't be able to. You're only limited to 10 questions. But use the areas I've outlined in the lecture to help you develop some pertinent questions you would ask your user community to help you understand what you need for your library. I've also supplied you with some examples of needs assessments that libraries have made available if you want to draw from their questions. In addition, you have a simple activity to do in our LIB guides, plus reading and a quiz. Have a great week.